Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining EAC Product Development Solutions for our live webinar today. My name is Sierra Mickler. Today, we're going to be talking about why SOLIDWORKS users should be choosing Onshape for their CAD needs. And then we're going to be showing you how our cloud-based platform is really modernizing the product development world and how people can work remotely easier. All right, I'll hand things over to Bill now so he can show us around Onshape.
Thanks, Sierra. Hello, everybody. Thanks for attending our webinar today. I will be going through Onshape and SOLIDWORKS in a comparison between the two. So I wanted to start off, this is going to be a lot of PowerPoints, but it'll be a lot of interesting information, kind of a drag race comparison between SOLIDWORKS and Onshape, just so you can kind of see where they fit in. But I wanted to start initially with a little bit of the history of how these two products came about. First of all, Onshape was released 2015, SOLIDWORKS in 1995. The founders, same people, same guy, John Hirschtek. Also with Onshape, we had John McElney. But as you will be able to tell, that the two systems are very, very similar, although their architecture is totally different. Onshape is more of an MCAD solution, so mechanical CAD, where SOLIDWORKS is a little more robust, so it can do engineering and manufacturing. The software delivery, Onshape uses software as a service, and SOLIDWORKS uses the traditional, download and install type of an approach to get the application running locally. The learning curve, very easy to use Onshape. It's very straightforward. It's a little steeper for SOLIDWORKS, and I'll just say because there's more stuff to it. But we'll look at that a little bit more later on at the end too as well. Security-wise, very, very high security with Onshape, all encrypted in the cloud. As with most CAD systems, the security that you have is basically the security you have loaded in your network. So do you have virus scans and all that kind of stuff to check for things. The variety of model features, Onshape being a newer application, doesn't have the full suite of features that you find in software packages that have been around 25, 35 years, but it does have all the features you would need to create the parts that you would need to do. So SOLIDWORKS is a little bit more robust. Some of the features are kind of custom made for certain industries. That doesn't mean you can't create that geometry in Onshape. It just means you don't have a particular feature to create that. The updates is really kind of an interesting comparison. Everybody always is working on the latest version. When Onshape updates software, everybody gets it all at the same time. So everybody's always on the same release all the time. With SOLIDWORKS, like traditional CAD, you download updates, there's maintenance builds, things like that. The operating system, Onshape runs on Windows, runs on Mac, Android, iOS, Linux, and SOLIDWORKS has always run on Windows. So let's talk about some specifics. As far as administration, there's no downloads or installs with Onshape. Everything is in the cloud. All we need is a web browser to access the application. We can instantly add and revoke CAD seats. So as simple as putting in somebody's email. They are then an Onshape user, and they are part of our community then. We can instantly add or revoke access to things. So it's just as simple as adding somebody's email. You can also revoke and take away their access to that just by hitting a little checkbox or an X next to their name. All users in the world have the same version of software. That's just the way it works, right? Everybody has and points to the same software. New features and fixes come out every 3 weeks. So we just had one on September 15th, so it looks like the next one we'll get will probably be the first week in October. But each release has maybe 10 to 12 really nice enhancements to it, and they send out there's movies explaining each one, and so it's very straightforward what new things have been added. And again, everybody gets those at the same time. The vendor takes care of all the hosting and the backups and the security, right? Because it's in the cloud. Amazon does all that, where you run on Amazon Web Services. It runs on PCs, on Macs, on Linux, on Chromebooks. That's good. Onshape also runs on your cell phone, right? So if you have an Android, you have an iPhone or an iPad, you can have CAD, mobile CAD basically. You can bring your CAD system with you. You can create features, you can take part in different release schemes, you can do design reviews with your phone. So it's a really robust CAD tool that we typically don't have with any other CAD system that's out there. As far as support and education, it's cloud-based, and also we have direct support from people like us, EAC, to help you with things. There's also online courses and training and things like that. Both packages have that, certainly, and also online documentation. And everybody does online nowadays, saving trees. Then as far as part modeling, get into some specifics. Both packages, 2D sketching, 3D modeling, surface design and analysis. Multi-body or multi-part design is really good in Onshape, and it's different than the way it works in SolidWorks, but it's much more robust. Direct editing, that's sort of non-parametric editing where we can grab a face and move it or remove pieces of geometry without parametrically changing things. Basically the tools you would use to work with like a step file or an IGES file or something like that. Sheet metal capabilities in both packages. Mold part design, obviously in both packages. Advanced mold design is only in SolidWorks, and that would be things like generating a parting line and things like that, where there's some pre-done capabilities in a system like SolidWorks that really hasn't been brought into Onshape yet. Weldments, you can do weld symbols in Onshape. You can certainly, there's a structural steel feature capability in there, so you can make weldments. Maybe not putting in the physical weld if that's what's meant by a weldment, but other than that, you can make a weldment. Also wire pipes, tubes, routing cables, things like that. That's in the SolidWorks Premium, not in Onshape yet. Table-driven part configurations and parameter-driven part configurations. So Onshape approaches configurations differently than anybody else. It's really pretty powerful and really easy. So we're typical, thinking of making a spreadsheet, right? And we have all the different options and things in that spreadsheet. That's typical what you think of configurations, and you're picking out, which row in the spreadsheet, those are the values that it's going to use. Onshape approaches that a little bit differently. You can make a couple of different inputs or a couple different tables to replace those 256 different cells you have with maybe like 8. So it's a different way of doing things, much more robust and much easier to do. If we go into assembly modeling, both packages, certainly have assembly mates, that concept of putting two parts together. Also putting limits on mates. So if we're putting in a slider or a rotational type of, or planar constraint, we put limits on that. Also, relations can be added to those mates. We can also do, in Onshape world, mate rigidity and connected parts in basically one step. You can use and put two parts together just with one mate. So really 2 picks, 2 parts go together. Inherently flexible assemblies, just because of the nature of the way Onshape works, the flexibility of assemblies is just different and much better than your typical traditional CAD system. Controlled in-context editing, so we can work with the part while we're working on it and make changes to it, and also have that controlled. So there'll be a little bit more discussion on this coming up in the next couple picks, and maybe it'll make itself a little bit more clear. Kinematic animation, certainly in both packages. Interference detection, yeah, you get that with solid models. Everybody does that. Collision detection, SolidWorks does have that. Onshape, you can check for interferences, but not while things are moving. Assembly configurations, sort of like part configurations and things like that. Certainly you can do that. And then a library of standard part and components. And Onshape has that with out of the box, and you need the professional version of SolidWorks to get at that. As far as drawings go, fully associative drawings, as the parts change, the drawings update. Controlled drawing updates. So that's what's kind of unique about Onshape. If any of you worked on real complex drawings, it could have lots of sheets, lots of different views, hidden line, cross-section views, notes, dimensions, all those things. And it doesn't matter what CAD system you're on. If you call up a drawing like that, it takes a while to come up to go through the different pages. It's regenerating the views and all that. It kind of slows down. What Onshape does, it approaches a little bit differently, is it'll highlight and let you know if the drawing needs to be updated. But if you're going in and just going to add a couple of dimensions or some notes or something like that, you don't have to update it. You can do your work. And then if you want things to update, you can click the button, and then it does what everybody else's system does. It just updates all the views for you at once. Dimensioning and tolerancing, certainly both systems have that, along with annotations, geometric tolerances, things like that. An integrated DWG viewer, right, for looking at AutoCAD files. Bill of materials for assemblies and displaying those in drawings, certainly. Also exploded views, associated hole callouts. So we put in a standard type of hole. That information is displayed as a note on that hole. Hole tables, both systems have that. Weld tables and cutlass. We have weld symbols in Onshape, but not weld tables. Sheet metal bend notes and things like that, certainly. And model-based definition. So that's like the ANSI 1441. There's also an ISO standard, but it's sort of like three-dimensional notes. According to the ANSI or the ISO standards, Onshape does not have that. It's an add-on for the SolidWorks package. And then CAD file import, certainly import neutral 3D file formats. That'd be CAD, or it'd be IGES and STEP and things like that. Import proprietary data, so that would be open an NX file, open a SolidWorks file, open a Creo file. All systems do that, both systems do that. Open neutral 3D CAD formats, and then also proprietary 3D file formats. And then in addition, out of the box, Onshape will open up CATIA V5 and JT files without any additional packages or modules being purchased for that. So if we talk about data management, that's really where Onshape starts to pull ahead. Is data management's included with Onshape. So it's just, don't think of it as just a CAD system, because everything I've been talking about so far has been, revolving around the CAD industry or the CAD capabilities of the Onshape package. But the thing is here is now we can start talking about data management. We have version control, so you can put on different versions at any point in time. Multi-user modeling, so we can work together on the same system, and there isn't this concept of having to check something out to work on it or anything like that, or check it back in, which is typical to most data management systems. An infinite number of undos and redos, so you can never lose your work. You can always go back to at some point where it existed. You can graphically compare histories in Onshape out of the box. SolidWorks Professional will do that. We can do branch and merge. So it's kind of an interesting concept. As I'm developing, I could say, I want to create a branch and go off in a different idea direction, maybe add some other things to it, see if that works out. If it pans out, if I like what it happens, how it's developing, I can merge it back in with the main design. And if I don't, I can just leave it out there. So you can do a lot of different things with this branching, not just the example that I gave here, but it can be used in a lot of different ways. We also can control reference updates, which is unique. Again, sort of like the drawing where we choose when we have things update. If we have an assembly made up of other components or other sub-assemblies, if those parts change, it'll indicate next to that part that there is a newer version, a newer update capable there. And then we can pick and choose whether we want it to update to that new version or not. So again, giving the user control over when things update. Things just aren't automatically happening because sometimes you don't want them to automatically happen. Advanced metadata search, so like you would in any data management system, you can search for user-defined properties and by material and in a variety of different ways to kind of filter and get exactly what you're looking for as it's searching through the information that's out there. Also, there's built-in release management system with Onshape, and there's also the capability to add additional workflows with another version, a higher version of Onshape, which would be the enterprise version. where you can create your own workflows. And then as far as collaboration and sharing, that's really where Onshape is unique. We can share CAD data without creating any copies of anything. To have somebody look at your design, you don't send them a copy, you just say, look at my design, send them a link to it. Granular permission control, so if I give somebody the capability to look at something, I could say, you know, well, you can just look at it, but you can add notes to it if you want, or you might be able to maybe make a copy of it or something like that. We can also do and revoke that capability. As I mentioned before, we can just hit the X next to their name and they no longer have access to that data. Real-time collaboration and modeling, as we mentioned before, we're working on the same part at the same time. Kind of a different concept, but it's tremendously powerful. It's not like two people are going to be trying, one guy's putting a chamfer on an edge and another guy's putting a round. In that case, though, the first one that puts theirs in wins. But usually working on assemblies, you can have different people working on different sub-assemblies or even on the same area, and it just makes things a lot easier, a lot quicker in keeping that product development workflow going forward. A real-time collaborative viewing, obviously, if we can do collaborative modeling, we can also watch and see what's going on. Live chat, so there's built-in chat capability. So if people aren't co-located, you can chat back and forth, send images back and forth if you want to. Use even a slave capability. So as one person is rotating or zooming in and out, the other person sees that exact rotation and zooming in and out to help clarify any questions or things that they might be going through. There's a concept, again, sort of in the workflow idea of task assignment. I can send somebody a task saying, I need you to develop this part or to add some aspect to this design. And that becomes an assignment to them. Once they complete it, they can check it off and say they're done. But again, just kind of a way of formalizing requests to get things finished. Mobile notifications as well. So if someone asks me to be part of a release, to let's say look at a particular design and either release it or reject it, or do a design review or anything like that, something pops up. And I wasn't in the office, but I have my phone with me. It pops up on my phone and says, here, someone's asking you to be part of this release process or something like that. And then we also have a free CAD viewer with Onshape. So basically I can send somebody a link and they can just call it up and see what I'm working with. Analysis, rendering, CAM, and more. So in this, there's an online app store. So I remember when SOLIDWORKS first started out, they were heavily dependent on apps as well, right? They kind of focused on making parts, assemblies, and drawings. Then eventually, as time progressed, they added more and more applications. So where Onshape is right now, if we needed extra capabilities, there are other companies that you can get as an add-on. So that's where you go to the App Store to get that. So again, photorealistic rendering, that would be an add-on. Same with computer-aided manufacturing, structural analysis, thermal analysis, kinematic or dynamic motion studies type of things. All of these are available in the App Store. And then fluid simulation as well. So there's also, most CAD systems have this application interface, but a way to create other applications and have them work with your application. So that's what the API is, but both systems have that. Onshape also has the ability to create custom features, and the way that you create the custom features are using the exact same tools that the developers use. So one of the nice things is that there's a community of custom features that are out there, that's sort of like a library of custom features. I don't want to have to create my own gear teeth. There's a feature out there for creating a spur gear or a gear train or something like that. So lots of those free kind of downloads of features that you can do with Onshape. So that's sort of our list of comparisons between the two products. One of the things I just wanted to kind of highlight just in discussions before I move on a little bit is that a unique thing about Onshape is that you don't lose work. Everything is stored. You can always go back. So if your system crashes, If you're a SolidWorks user, sometimes you lose work. One of the things you do is save all the time. And just so we don't have a blank screen, I'll do this. But you never lose work with Onshape, right? It's not that software doesn't crash, you'd never see it, you'd never notice it, because all it does is just roll over to the next version of Onshape that's running. It's easier collaboration, so you don't have to wait for people to send files over to you, or you have to check things out or anything like that. Much easier to collaborate. Better IP, intellectual property protection. There's no like unauthorized duplication or unintended sharing or even data breaches with Onshape being in the cloud. There's no IT overhead. So Onshape doesn't need downloads, it doesn't need installs, doesn't need license codes, any of that stuff. All you need is a web browser. And then PDM is not required. Like with most CAD systems, once you start generating all these files, you need some way to manage it. With all the capabilities built in with Onshape, you're always working with the latest version of the document, and every action that you do by every team member is recorded, and there's unlimited undos and redos. So with that, I'm going to minimize my PowerPoint here for a second, and I want to show you SolidWorks. So I have SolidWorks up here. I had to clear off 10.4 gigabytes of space on my laptop so I could load this. But I have all of SolidWorks here, right? So I have the CAM, I have, the e-drawings, and, the regular core capabilities and whatever else is in there. It still barks at me about some whole wizard, but it's here. So as you can see, the way that we work with SolidWorks, we have a variety of icons and menus along the top. Also along the left side would be kind of the feature tree as we're creating features and things like that. Being able to create features and choose the type of features we want would be over here. Then additional modules be further along the left side. If we go over along the right side, there's some other things over here for different types of palettes and accessing the form. I did find an area down here in the lower right corner that doesn't have any menus, which is kind of nice. This is, I'm not going to get into making any geometry here, but this is just the interface of SolidWorks. I'm going to pop up the interface for Onshape. So this is what Onshape looks like. All the features that Onshape has are right across the top here. Here is the App Store, the Learning Center. This is how we share information with other people. And then over here is our feature tree. And then it's a multi-body part modeling system. So here we would have the different bodies or parts that we would be creating as we create our geometry. As you can see, it's a much cleaner interface. It's just, speaking as someone who learned from scratch this software, this was, of all the CAD systems I've learned over the years, this was by far the easiest to learn. And this Learning Center was a huge help, right? The training classes they have in there, the online tutorials and webinars and things like that are absolutely awesome to getting you up to speed as quickly as possible. And one of the things, I guess, along the lines of getting up to speed as quickly as possible is that EAC has, Onshape's just better with EAC. We have an onboarding bundle that allows people to get spooled up in Onshape much better and quicker. One of the things, just a kind of a sidelight of the bundle, is that we would include a t-shirt with that as well that has, the EAC logo, has Onshape on there. So, we realize that not everybody is going to get Onshape right away. And I didn't want anyone to feel left out. So if you're going to stay with SolidWorks, we're not going to make you or send you a t-shirt, but we can send you a link to Amazon, and you can get a t-shirt there for the people that decide to, not move forward with a modern CAD system. But I think with that, I'm going to turn this back to Sierra and certainly be open for any questions.